everybody, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to show you how I made this little squishy inspired by a little polar bear coming out of a strawberry macaron. I'm not 100% sure where I came up with this idea, but I think I've just kind of like mashed together the polar bear from Sumika Garashi and an eye bloom squishy that I've seen recently, and I just thought that it would make the cutest squishy ever. So to start off with, I just took a small block of memory foam and I just went ahead and snipped away until I was left with kind of just a rough circle shape. I then took this shape and cut it in half kind of widthways so that I was left with two pieces exactly the same. Once I had both pieces, what I then went ahead and did was kind of took off the edge of one of the top of the part of the circles. I hope that makes sense. I've kind of slowed it down a little bit here so that you can kind of see it a bit better, but I just kind of took all of those edges off so that I was left with another level at the top. Basically, I just wanted to create like the beveled edge of the macaron, so I just went ahead and removed all of that and just kind of shaped it into a circle, and then I went ahead and focused on the kind of like little puffy bit around the edges. Like I said, it's really hard to explain, but hopefully you can see what I'm kind of doing here, just so that you can get a better idea of how to make it yourself. I then went ahead and just smoothed out all of the edges a little bit more with the tip of my scissors, just to make sure that it was as flat as possible and that the edges were kind of nice and rounded off and just nice and smooth. I then went ahead and took the shape and kind of made like indents around the little kind of fluffy bit of the macaron, just to kind of give it a bit of extra texture, as you can see here. And then I went ahead and smoothed off the bottom edge of the shape so that it looked like it was one macaron shell. I did the exact same technique to the other side of the circle that obviously I had set aside, so that I had two pieces left cut the same. So once I had both pieces of the macaron, I then needed to make the polar bear to fit inside. In order to make that, I just took the same thickness memory foam yet again, and I just went ahead and drew out a circle. The main aim of the game here is to make a cylinder with two little ears poking out of the top. So I marked out where I wanted the ear parts to be and then just cut the rest of the foam down to be a cylinder. Now this can be quite tricky, so if you want you can make a cylinder and then attach the ears on afterwards, but I wanted to minimize the amount of glue I used as I don't have fabric glue, so sometimes my glue can leave hard kind of like spots. So yeah, I just wanted to minimize the amount of glue I had to use. I then went ahead and cut two little circles into the very front of the cylinder, and then I just cut away like not on those two holes to make the head of the bear nice and rounded and shaped out, and I made sure to leave the two little circles in the front. I then went ahead and took my pen and just drew out little ears on those squares I left before on the main cylinder, just to shape them into better little ear shapes and really just smooth them out and just make them look like a part of a bear. I then did the same with the two legs on the front. I just rounded them out each individually, making them nice and kind of cute and just look like the polar bear was kind of like lazing out through the macaron. I then went ahead and just removed any excess foam by cutting off the end and putting aside the piece of foam for later. And then I just went ahead and just kind of like removed any of the excess from the top, as I knew that was going to have to sit inside the macaron shell and I wanted it to blend smoothly. With the piece that I kind of set aside, I then went ahead and just popped on two legs and a little tail, and I just carved that in the exact same way that I did the top. Next, in order to glue them together, I just actually used super glue because, like I said, I didn't have any fabric glue, and I just super glued the base of both pieces down to the bottom piece of macaron. I then popped on some more glue on the back of the kind of like butt part, and I popped the other macaron shell onto the very top and just like kind of held that down until it had secured. I then glued the top part of the head as well into the top part of the macaron, and then I actually sealed up all of the edges so that both the macarons were touching and fully glued together. So once I had the shape all fully complete, I then went ahead and took a metal barbecue skewer and just kind of stabbed that right through the squishy. I do this so that I'm able to kind of like pop it up into a vase or something like that, and then just paint the whole squishy at once, and then it's able to dry all at once, rather than me painting one side, painting the other, wait for that to dry, painting the other. You know, it takes up so much time. So in order to use like the skewer method, it just speeds things up a little bit and you're able to paint it all at once and then leave it all to dry at once. And I just painted it in this bubblegum pink colour all over the entirety squishy with about 3 layers, leaving it to dry in between each layer. I did actually paint the kind of head and the like butt part of the polar bear just because I wanted a good base layer so that I was able to paint the white on very easily. Before painting the white on, I just moved the skewer around a little bit to make sure that if it was going to pull any paint off, then it would do it at this point so that I could fix it with the white in the future. It did pull the paint off, so I'll show you how I fix that in a minute. But basically, I just went ahead with a white puffy paint and painted it on with a paintbrush so that I could get a really, really neat finish. I did do 2 layers of the white in total just to build up the colour. So as you can see, that is where the hole is. I also painted in a bit of white on that side, but to fill in the hole, I just use really thick clumps of the puffy paint and stick it right in there, and then leave that to dry without blending it in or anything, because I just kind of want to bulk up the holes. What I then went ahead and did was just took my paintbrush and ended up putting a white line across this side also, as I forgot to film the other side. But basically I just took my paintbrush and kind of dabbed it along to make it look like there was filling all the way around the side of the macaron, and to kind of meet the head with the butt part of the little polar bear. Once the white had completely dried and the little holes were then sealed, I then decided to pop a few little strawberries on the top of the macaron just to give it a bit of extra detail. So I just went in with a dotting tool and drew on these little kind of heart shapes, and I did one slightly bigger and one slightly smaller. Once I had those shapes, I then took some green on a small paintbrush and just painted on some little tops of the strawberry. And then I took my dotting tool once again and dipped it in the same white that I used on the head and the butt of the polar bear, and I just went ahead and popped on some white dots on the strawberries, as I think this is a really cute little kawaii kind of look and I just adore it. Next I went ahead with my dotting tool yet again and some black puffy paint, and I just went ahead and painted on a little bear nose, and then I popped on 2 eyes either side of that nose, just keeping it nice and simple. And the face is, like I said before, based on the Sumiko Gurashi polar bear, because if you guys don't already know, I am obsessed with Sumiko Gurashi so much, and I just love the little polar bear, so that's where the face is inspired from. I then went ahead and added some pink on the inside of the ears, and then I felt like it just needed a little bit something extra, so I went ahead and popped like little love hearts on the paws of the bears. I was going to do like little paw prints, but I thought love hearts would be cuter, so yeah, I just put a little love heart on each of the paws, so yeah, 4 of them in total. So once all the paws were then painted on, this is what the little guy looks like. I think it's turned out so cute. I absolutely adore the colors used on it. I absolutely love when red and pink is together, and I think with its cute little face on there, it just looks adorable. This does actually squish really nicely, which I found to be quite surprising because it is quite big, but it's really nice and soft, and when you squish it, it's perfectly slow rising. It's not too slow rising where you're waiting like days for it to rise back up, but it does hold its shape well and hold those hand crinkles in there, as Helicopter would say, and honestly, I absolutely love it. I just think it looks perfect. Its little face squishes well, its little butt squishes well, its little tail squishes well, and its body is just so satisfying to squish in your hand. It's just the perfect size as well, that you can kind of like grab it and it just be like a handful, rather than, you know, those giant ones at the moment that take like 10 billion hands or like your whole body to squish them. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and I will see you the day after next for another video. Bye!